11 for heaven. 11 for heaven. I really don't think it's all just 7. Neve is my reflection and everyone's link to just what it would look like standing on the brink of heaven reflected as if present on earth. Exactly familiar as having given birth to such spirit soul that stomped her feet and proclaimed she wouldn't go. Took so long to get here, prolonged 2+ long weeks by the fear of the torture she'd endure, of everything wrong and unrighteous. No, heaven couldn't ever face up to life down here. Quite a lot to view upon looking in the mirror. Let's see. Heaven wouldn't face it being sent to walk this land. It's cold and itchy and painful. Truth is, nobody holds your hand. Coming from a world much softer, you come to expect perfection. Poor heaven, seeing anything less than perfect, coming from such a privileged conception. I mean, angels born of pureness are not merely a misconception. No, rather, they are everything righteous and just and real. Looking like a poor reflection, rippled, ruffled, disturbed, and distraught. The appearance of heaven in shoes it fits not. But maybe for some reason, we're all expected to feel, so that we ease up as angels, and poor humans in poor season, when the small becomes such a big-ass ordeal, and they seem to fall apart for no reason. Happens to be, I know, that their hearts are just more pure. So all the more bothered through life they must endure, disappointed at every shortcoming. The imperfect flaws and failed expectations. Seems, even though those souls knew it'd be hell, they still held it all up to standards from which it fell. Like falling from grace. The fallen should fall to their very own place. So you wonder where they'd fit if they came down to abide for a bit? In Eden, of course, naked and innocent, having no clue, joyful and frolicking in just their birthday suits, naming the animals one by one. Nothing else to do but enjoy their fun and harmless daily pursuits. But where has Eden disappeared? Since that girl in the garden replied to a voice she heard? Up until then, man and woman lived at peace, with dominion over the life in and around their bare feet. Unfortunately, somehow slithered in a weapon of mass deceit. Tricked that girl into believing it would do no harm to disobey the one rule given and not pick fruit from only one tree in the garden. But to her alarm, it burst her eyes open, exposing the fabric weaved, materializing the feud that mankind today fights on, hoping that after life we'll all be reprieved. A war that day began within the dominion of earth and Eden, and within the constraints of man. For that poisonous fruit the serpent tricked her into came from the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. I guess once we'd seen it too, there was nothing more we could do to retrieve the pure perfection we didn't know we had. Up until that moment, heaven hadn't minded earth. It had not questioned self-will, self, or even its birth. Like Adam and Eve, it did as it was told, obeying the righteous commandments of oh so very old. Before knowledge existed in Eden, everything was pure. But once Eve ate of the fruit to which the devil did allure, good and evil took form. As the understanding was imparted, she covered up her glory for shame and secrets hidden, not clothing to stay warm, but garments meant to hide what once was not impure or hideous inside. What was it contained within that one tree, so potent that it cursed us as a poison, bringing us to see the lines stretched and separating, clearly and most vividly accentuating the newly defined importance, meaning, and purpose of knowing that valid difference between right and wrong, good and bad, love and hate. So much to ponder and so many baffling questions, it makes the list too long. Makes a number of us quite irate. But there was something there behind it all. Some reason or purpose for mankind's fall. Fall from grace. I'm going to keep moving. Honestly feels like landing on our face. It's no wonder angels emerging in this place bitch and moan all about how it's all just one big disgrace. But as I stand by, wedged, securely waiting, up against my solid faith, reaching up into the sky, I wonder and wonder and wonder what he's got to teach the angels, and just exactly why. Peering through my window, providing me reflection, I consciously return to that place in the garden where I first asked myself the question, what was it about that old tree of knowledge that provided the fruit we were forbidden to taste, that now at this time I must acknowledge was not placed in the garden to go to waste. No, hidden beneath it was some great intended reason for why, in that sudden moment of haste, Eve caved and chose wrong, committing the first act of treason. Within me it strums some long-lasting song. It is clear that the law laid down there for them to follow was placed with intentions greater than any one of us could believe. But the author put a sour purpose there to swallow. Hidden in the fruit was something clever up his sleeve. It was not a mistake that Eve chose wrong. In a way it was right, planned all along. To eat of the fruit that he did make, to impart the knowledge that shed the light upon good and evil, where we find the hate that brought in by the devil draws a fine line of fate between two places of existence, to either extreme, with stubborn resistance, to one or the other, we all must lean. We're meant to grasp the knowledge, more than merely a dream, so that on our own we acknowledge and choose our extreme. Funny thing that I have found a key that draws that firm line made of hate, splitting the bonds of all existence for all of eternity. As good hates evil and evil hates good, the war wages on since at the brink we stood. To find heaven on earth, if only we could. But only if someone could give birth to a divine being who could teach how to dissolve the line that caused the breach. What would it have to require to facilitate the igniting of revolutionary fire? True heart and passionate desire survives anything encountered trudging through the mire. Any other place would have driven fate to doom. So, Creator chose a womb in which to place his sacred piece of heaven. But in the transfer between worlds, as heaven came to life, she squirmed and kicked and screamed, said no to all the strife. The deliverance was messy, shifting its shape, coming out looking backwards, awfully fussy, and stubbornly more than 2 weeks late. She got the name even Mama didn't know defined her. All the more, Eden Nevaeh painfully helped to refine her. Poor Mama thought she'd be so lucky to have the honor of bestowing the presence of something so divinely brand new. But Nevaeh thought life so yucky. Nobody, even Mama, knew how pure goodness would appear, snub-nosed and grumpy, as if reflected in a mirror, a little frumpy, bringing on less heaven than hell. But when down from grace my precious Eden fell, she pulled away with her some piece of lace to unravel the veil, concealing within it a stunning new tale that would take some odd years to mature before Mama could decipher what reflected to her. On year 11, the veil slipped away, revealing the secrets sent down with heaven, causing such great reverence at the display of so many colors, vivid and grand. Early on, it was obvious she had been fashioned quite glorious by that much higher hand. So with nothing that could be done, it had to be accepted as it was. Wasn't going to be fun, shouldn't run, and never could be undone. No one on earth could shape Eden Nevaeh, and now it's apparent she's the same as she's been since before her birth. Very stubborn, rebellious, defiant, and sure. I could see that she was special, but seeing through such a blur, I never could have imagined above all the beautiful dimensions, pure perfect goodness, and love that tumbled out backwards, surviving the fall that spit her out from above. So the meaning sets in, sinks in. As long as the line grows steadily thicker, the worse we get severed in sin, the more and more that we bicker, fueling hate that dims the light of love's flicker. But love is as stubborn as heaven could be, if sent down to battle to get us to see that this place that we hold in such high regard is not all that there is. So there's very good reason to try very hard to lean over the line away from the treason that's got us all barred from a place of pure love, truth, and goodness that would make us all cry if we stood before heaven, each one a witness. We'd all rather die than live in a place so hideous to her that knowing about it makes us finally try, leaning all the more to one side. No doubt about it, look at Eden. She knows right from wrong. There's a cause for which she'll throw a fit. Listen to her song. Deep in the garden, an old tree's grown so long, awaiting return that we've long since prolonged. Perhaps it has grown to be the oldest old tree. 4,900 years it has harbored for free the knowledge to get us back to where we should be. If we all looked to Eden, to that tree we'd be cleaving, and we wouldn't be leaving. 'Cause boy, if we did, we'd be feeling the same. Cursing that damnable serpent from whom Eve should have hid, covering our faces in the ugliest of shame. So angry at injustice, oh yes, we'd be just as profane. But Eden Nevaeh is the purest of all. Her heart is compassion, and her soul so strong, she speaks out to break down the wall that keeps us away, the great and the small. She's told me and told me all along just what's been so awful wrong. When I see her this way, it makes nothing but sense. Sent down from above to teach those of us on earth the lesson we've missed ever since that delectable fruit first gave birth to that line that stands separating the two opposing sides, firing back and forth, that old tool where there abides the awful hating, Disguised in the battle it hides, as the hate that fires out from both sides. How can it be that we seem to think fire fights fire, when all along its only true desire is pure love it wants to drink? Love is like water, hate like fire. If good just hates evil, it just burns hotter, keeping us hanging on a wire that we should just solder, drawing back to leap further than ever before, finally raising the score that ends the war. Only with love do we get through the door to get into heaven above. Because hate breeds hate, stealing off a land that was once our fate. Love brings the solution that melts away the poison that we breathe like pollution. Jesus said to love your enemy. He didn't say, be the blasphemy, but only an anomaly that by which we see the divine and most heavenly. And then Eden can once again be as she was meant to be. Love untied, unlied, set to abide in the garden, finally free and pure as can be. The end. Love untied, unlied, set to abide in the garden, finally free and pure as can be. The end. Yep. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed.